All right, I finished The Catcher in the Rye. This is one of my favorite books. I loved it. It's the second time I read it, and I loved it even more the second time. It's a great book. So I made some notes, some things that I wanted to talk about, and I'm just gonna read over them and start word vomiting a little bit into the camera. Some of my thoughts on this book. So let's get into it. All right, the first note that I have on this book is Holden doesn't realize he's a child, and I think obviously the book's all about Holden struggling to come to terms with adulthood and letting go of his childhood and all that sort of stuff. But I think Holden sees himself as an adult in this adult world, along with all the other adults that are all phonies, and he's like the only real one. That's where he sees himself. Everyone else sees themselves in the adult world, and Holden as just a little child who's always trying to talk to them, always annoying them, and who they're just not really interested in. So many times he tries to talk to adults, and it's actually kind of sad because he's trying to talk to them, get some guidance in a way, but none of them give him the time of day. Like when he's talking to Luce at the bar, his old friend from school, and he just wants to talk about sex the whole time, and Luce is like, chill dude, like no. Or when he meets with the prostitute and wants to talk with her, and she's like, what is your deal? Even she was like his age, but she was more in that adult world than he is. He's still a child and doesn't realize it. But everyone else does. Like when he talks to the cab drivers as well, and what does he say? We sort of struck up a conversation, except he wasn't too friendly. And it's like, yeah, he wasn't friendly because you were just annoying him the whole time and you didn't realize it. That's another thing. Holden really struggles to pick up on social cues, which actually leads me to another point, which is that Holden is such a hypocrite. It was annoying me so much in the first few chapters because he's complaining about Ackley, the annoying roommate or whatever. He was like, oh my gosh, like this kid's so annoying, he won't leave me alone, he doesn't pick up on social cues, he doesn't know when to leave us alone, all that sort of stuff. He was just going off about how horrible and annoying Ackley was. And I was like, yeah, you're right, he is kind of annoying, like that stuff would annoy me too. But then Ackley leaves and Stradlater comes in, and Holden starts doing the same stuff Ackley was doing to him, to Stradlater. And I'm like, okay, so you're just a hypocrite. The things you were complaining about this guy doing, you're just doing it to this other guy. And he also wasn't picking up on social cues. Like Stradlater clearly didn't want to talk about some things, or just, and then Holden starts wrestling him and things like that. So another thing that was actually annoying me, Holden says multiple times, like, I hate when people repeat themselves. And if you just pay attention to how many times Holden repeats himself, you'll be like, wait, what? I thought you hated this stuff. One more thing. He's made a few comments about how he hates going to movies because everyone laughs at the wrong parts and everyone talks and things like that. But he also says, I probably can't find the quote right now, but he says, like, when I go to the movies, I laugh so much. If I was sitting near me, I would tell myself to shut up, or something along those lines. Basically, like, admitting to his hypocrisy. And I was like, okay, man. He's just in his own head. He has a lot of blind spots, as everyone does. But that was one that I really noticed. He's a very big hypocrite. Another note on Holden's hypocrisy is I don't think there's anything more phony than being a hypocrite. Like, hypocrite and phony are synonyms in my mind. So his hypocrisy shows just how much of a phony he is, just like everyone else. But like I said, those are the blind spots that he probably doesn't realize. But yeah, just on phoniness in general, Holden talks so much about not being a phony and sets himself against it so much that I think it kind of reflects his insecurity that he is one, because he just talks so poorly about them. And if you listen to the way he talks, it's like he goes overboard to the point where it's like you talk so badly about it because you're worried that you are one of them. At least that's how I read it. He says it's almost like he's trying to convince himself more than he's even trying to convince us that he's not a phony, which I just find interesting. But what I really find most interesting in the whole book probably is Holden's relationship with his siblings. So he has his younger sister Phoebe, his older brother DB, and then he has another brother Ali who passed away when he was 10 years old. And just the dynamic between all of them is very interesting. Holden's older brother DB works in Hollywood as a writer for movies, and so for Holden that's just that's the worst thing ever. Holden obviously still loves him, and he doesn't directly say much about it, but knowing Holden, he hates the movies. He thinks Hollywood is the land of phonies, all that sort of stuff. So DB he's in the thick of it. He's one of them. So Holden only ever makes one comment about it when he finds out DB's writing a movie about Annapolis, and he's like, what does he know about Annapolis? And he's like, I hate Hollywood. Typical Holden stuff. But like I said, he loves DB. It's just, I think, a little hard for him that his brother works in Hollywood making movies, like two things that Holden really does not like at all. But his sister Phoebe, on the other hand, she's an angel in his eyes. He loves her. She's like the sweetest thing ever. I think she's like 10 years old or so. I'm not sure. She's a kid. Holden loves her. Everything she does is amazing. It's sweet. Like he's obsessed. At one point, he finds her asleep with her mouth wide open, and he says something along the lines of like, kids look so good when they fall asleep with their mouth open, whereas adults look disgusting. And it's just an example of how much he adores childhood and children and like that innocence of being a child. So he loves Phoebe for that. But the one issue with Phoebe is he knows, and he realizes it a few times, it's not going to last forever. That childhood innocence, he knows it's leaving for him, or it's already left. He knows it won't last like that for Phoebe. And it shows a few times, like when she wants to run away with him and miss her play, he gets really upset because, he's like, he doesn't say it, but he's like thinking, you're a child, like he doesn't want to pull her away from that. She needs to be in her childhood. She needs to enjoy it. And the fact that she, wants to leave and run away with him and abandon her childhood is just like the worst thing ever for him. So that was an interesting scene when she tried to do that. But Allie is a little different because Allie will forever be a child. Allie died when he was 10 years old. So for Holden, he's just in his mind as a 10-year-old forever. He's preserved in a glass case forever. And that brings us on to the museum as well. Because Holden talked about, I think it's the Natural History Museum. He loves that place. He's obsessed with it. He loved going there as a kid. And one comment he made was about how he loved every time you went there, everything was exactly the same. Nothing changed. Everything was behind the case in the same spot, exactly that way, and it was going to stay that way forever. The only thing that was different was you. And that's exactly how he sees Allie. Allie is behind a glass case in his mind to be a perfectly innocent, angelic 10-year-old forever. And Holden loves that. Holden loves the fact that Allie, obviously he's upset and sad that he died, obviously. But he has this idealized version of Allie. He'll never have to go through what Holden's going through. He's never going to have to go on and become a phony like DB did. He's forever in the state that Phoebe's in right now. Perfect, innocent childhood. So he loves that, and I just found that dynamic between the three siblings very interesting. And I can't talk about this book without talking about the title of the book. And I love in books when, you're reading it and you get to the end or wherever you get to, and like the character references the name of the book. I don't know, I love that. So that happened in like chapter 20 or something in this book, where Phoebe is telling Holden basically he hates everything. She's like, you don't like anything, like what do you want to be when you grow up? Like you don't like anything, which is true. He does hate everything. And he's trying to think and he can't think of anything. Like he really can't think of anything. The only thing that comes to his mind is one of his, one kid at his school got bullied and ended up jumping out of the dorm room and killing himself. For some reason, that's what came to mind for Holden. And then right after that, I think it clicked in his head. He was like, you know what I want to be? I want to be the catcher in the rye. And he explains it as he wants to stand on the edge of a cliff by a field where all these children are playing in the field with tall ryegrass, so they can't really see where they're going. And he wants to stand on the edge of the cliff and protect them from falling off. Which was obviously interesting that he said that right after he talked about a kid falling out of the dorm room building. So a little metaphor there. But he wants to stand on the edge of the cliff and help kids from falling off. And obviously it's a metaphor for help them, enjoy their childhood, keep them away from this fall to adulthood that they're going to face. And speaking of fall, when he went to Mr. Antolini's house to, stay the night because he had nowhere else to go. First of all, Mr. Antolini was the only teacher who helped the kid who had fallen from the dorm, which stood out to Holden. He respected that. So that was interesting. But he goes to his house, and Mr. Antolini even warns him that he's going to experience a fall. He tells Holden that he is getting ready for some sort of fall, and he can tell that Holden is kind of going through it. and just warns Holden that that might be coming, which again I thought was interesting because Holden is the one trying to protect kids from falling off the edge of the cliff. Meanwhile, he's being warned from someone older than him that he's about to fall off the cliff. So, unfortunately, the relationship with Mr. Antolini definitely went south. He was kind of creepy, but it was good for Holden to get that advice, I think. All right, and I'm gonna end with my optimistic take on the final scene. And in the final scene, Holden takes Phoebe to the carousel so that she can, go around on the horse or whatever. And Phoebe begs Holden, like, come on, join, get in, get on. And he's like, no, I'm just gonna watch. And then where is, I need to find that quote, hold on. Okay, so he's sitting watching Phoebe and he won't get on, he's just watching her. And he says, all of a sudden I felt so damn happy, I was damn near bawling. So he's just sitting here watching her go around on the carousel, and it's pouring rain, and he finally feels happy. It's the first time in the book he's really felt happy, I think. And in my mind, my optimistic take on this is that it's clicked for him. He's been struggling with the death of childhood, but he realizes just because childhood innocence and childhood is ending for him doesn't mean it's gone forever. He can still enjoy it vicariously through people like Phoebe, and maybe other kids or his children someday. Like, he doesn't have to mourn for the death of all childhood, just his own, which isn't as bad. I think he can still be happy that it exists, maybe just not within him. So that's my view on that final chapter. He finally had that realization and hopefully can move on and start maturing and growing into the adult world, because obviously he's having a tough time with it, and fair enough, a lot of people do. So I just love this book. I think it's a great book, super well written, and I love Holden. I feel like he's a super sweet, super sweet, kind of naive kid. He's very cynical, and he just has a lot of insecurities and fears, and they manifest themselves in annoying and obnoxious ways, because I know a lot of people find him annoying and obnoxious. I totally see how people would feel that way, but I'm a big fan of Holden and of the book. And sorry if this was kind of all over the place, but I just wanted to throw some of my thoughts out there because, like I said, I love this book. Thanks for watching.